Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Shruti Mishra and with me are Arundhati Ramanan and Ritu Singh. These are the top headlines from the startup space. Zepto plans a $250 million secondary share sale to boost Indian investor ownership ahead of its IPO in 2026. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 the private equity arms of Motilal Oswal and Edelweiss Financial Services are in discussions to buy shares in the secondary sale.
Grow Indigo, an agri-tech startup, has raised $10 million from British International Investment to accelerate the expansion of its sustainability programs across India, with 4 carbon farming projects at different stages of development and the first carbon credits expected to be issued soon. Grow Indigo aims to enroll millions of farmers and acres within the next 2 years.
Irame.ai, an AI-powered enterprise productivity and audit intelligence platform, has secured $1 million in seed funding from Sense AI Ventures. The investment will be used to scale its AI-driven audit intelligence across enterprises, expand its capabilities, and set new benchmarks for governance and compliance automation.
Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek released a major upgrade to its V3 large language model, intensifying competition with US tech leaders like OpenAI and Anthropic. The new model, DeepSeek V3-0324, was made available through AI development platform Hugging Face.
Xiaomi has raised $5.5 billion in an upside share sale as the company pushes forward with its ambitious electric vehicle manufacturing plans. The company sold 800 million shares at 53.25 Hong Kong dollars each. There were more than 200 investors who placed orders during the book building process, and the book was multiple times oversubscribed, Reuters reported.
Those were the headlines that we're tracking for you from the startup world. But on what's brewing today, quick commerce startup Zepto is in talks for current stockholders to sell as much as $250 million of their equity. The move comes ahead of the company's plan for an IPO later this year. Aishwarya Anand joins us now with the details. Aishwarya, what are you picking up?
Quick commerce unicorn Zepto is in talks with current stakeholders, including private equity arms of Motilal Oswal Financial Services and Edelweiss Financial Services, to sell as much as $250 million of their equity in the secondary sale, sources have confirmed to CNBC-TV18. Now, this move is aimed at increasing shareholding by Indian investors ahead of Zepto's IPO in 2026. The company is aiming to execute transactions at a valuation of just over $5 billion, sources added, saying Indian shareholders currently account for about 33% of Zepto's cap table, with founders Adit Palicha and Kaivalya Vora owning about a fifth of the firm. The goal is to lift that overall proportion to about 50%. Zepto had completed its reverse flip from Singapore to India in January, having received formal approvals from Singaporean courts and NCLT. In November 2024, Zepto raised $350 million in its third funding round, which added to its impressive 2024 trajectory, which has seen the company raise over $1 billion. Back to you.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for those details. Appreciate you joining us. Also on What's Brewing, Narayana Health, one of India's leading hospital systems, W Health Ventures, a healthcare venture capital firm, and 2070 Health, a healthcare-focused venture studio, have come together and launched Everhope Oncology, a chain of medical and surgical oncology facilities. Everhope has secured $10 million in seed funding to establish medical and surgical cancer care facilities in Delhi and Mumbai, and plans to expand to 10 cities over the next 3 years. To elaborate more, joining me now are Viren Shetty, the Vice Chairman at Narayana Health, and Dr. Pankaj Jetwani, Managing Partner and at W Health Ventures. Gentlemen, welcome to Startup Street. Viren, let me start with you. What inspired Narayana Health to partner with W Health Ventures and 2070 Health to launch Everhope Oncology? Also, if you could take us through your model and the ventures offerings.
Sure. The genesis of this came in a conversation that I had with Pankaj when I told him that we're facing a major problem in that we are building such large hospitals, we're investing in all the highest and latest end technology, getting very expensive doctors who've trained at some of the top medical colleges all over the world and buying surgical robots. And yet people don't want to come to the hospital. They don't want to come and they don't want to get treated in a hospital-like environment. And then we realized that people want to be treated much closer to their home. They want to be treated in a retail setting. So I said, what can we do as a hospital group? We have to not think about building things in hospitals. How do we go about it? And that was the genesis of the idea behind setting up this venture.
All right. Moving on to Dr. Pankaj now. Cancer care in India faces major challenges, like Viren also pointed out, from late detection to overburdening oncologists. How does Everhope Oncology plan to address these pressing issues? What are the offerings?
Yeah, look, I think the reality we're living today is that 150 million Indians who are alive today will have cancer at some point in their lives. And as a health system or as a society, we are not prepared. Patients with cancer not only go through their journeys of the clinical complex journeys that they also have to face, a lot of uncertainty, anxiety, chaos, lack of clarity, and it doesn't have to be this way. With Everhope, we're trying to redesign what we know of cancer care today. We want to bring high quality cancer care, but bring it in an extremely patient-centric format, closer to the patient's homes. And as a platform, we will continue to work on early diagnosis, daycare, chemotherapy that is closer to patients' homes, as well as other modalities, including surgical care. You mentioned doctor shortage. There's a huge supply constraint in this equation. We don't have enough oncologists. And our desire at Everhope, right from the get-go, is we're actively literally trying to hunt down highly entrepreneurial, like-minded oncologists who are interested in redesigning cancer care along with us and are interested in becoming business owners, right? So that's the mandate and thesis.
All right. Going back to Viren. Viren, affordability remains a huge barrier to cancer treatment in India. And, while you're starting with facilities in Delhi and Mumbai, plans are to expand to 10 cities in the next 3 years. How does Everhope Oncology plan to make advanced treatments more affordable to a wider population?
See, the largest components of cancer treatment are in the medicine cost. And the government has done a good job in trying to bring a lot more of local sourcing in enabling companies to get the APIs done in India. So medicine costs are quite affordable. And with new medicines being added to DPCO, a lot of patients won't bear the burden of very high costs. And as it is in India, for the quality of care you get one of the lowest prices in the world. What we're trying to solve for is healthcare access. Not so much about whether I can afford oncology or not, but the biggest barrier most people face is taking their aunt, their nephew, their grandmother, their cousin, their neighbor to a hospital to get checked up. So we're hoping that by building much smaller facilities in much more convenient locations, closer to where people work or where they live, that stigma gets removed from accessing the first level of cancer care.
Okay. Dr. Pankaj, coming to you now, you've previously mentioned that global innovations like CAR-T therapy and daycare chemotherapy infusion centers. How do you see these advancements shaping the future of cancer care in India particularly?
Look, let me have you in on a secret that Viren made me aware of. If you're interested in a time machine to know the future of healthcare in India, all you have to do is get on a plane, right? Travel east or west, and you'll probably know what the future of healthcare might look like.
Okay.
I think there are 3 or 4 things that I think will happen. I think first, we need to diagnose our patients early to improve their chances of recovering and living a healthy life, also reducing the cost of care. So I think there are interesting, low cost, more accurate, more convenient, broad-based screening technologies that are becoming more and more possible that I think will continue to scale in India. I think the second is daycare chemo will become the standard of care for chemotherapy delivery.
Okay.
It honestly very, very limited sense, no sense for most patients to get their chemotherapies in large hospitals. And I think this format, almost like a spa-like, comfortable, patient-centric setting, will become more and more common in India in the decades to come. I think the third thing could be wrong here, but I think we're seeing this massive demand in oncology will continue for the next decade, even more. At the same time, there's very limited supply of specialists. So this format will lead to the rise of single specialty oncology businesses like Everhope that will use technology to standardize care delivery, protocols that will use technology to enhance the patient experience So I think that will continue to happen. We'll see the rise of more single specialty oncology businesses that will continue to leverage to provide.
And one final question, Dr. Pankaj, before I let you go. How do you see Everhope Oncology scaling beyond India in the future? And if you could share with us your long-term vision and any targets.
Look, I think we're in a privileged position to work on an extremely large and hard societal problem. I think our eyes are set on India as a market. There's so much to do to meet the needs of 150 million Indians who are alive today who will get cancer at some point in their life. Long-term vision is very simple: to bring best-in-class, patient-centered, empathetic care closer to the patient's home.
All right. With that, I'll have to wrap up our conversation. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today and for joining us on Startup Street.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks, Wayne.
Well, in other interesting data coming in, data intelligence platform Tracxn's latest Geo-Quarterly India Tech report shows India's tech startups have raised $2.5 billion in the first quarter of this calendar year, ranking third globally behind the US and the UK. Auto tech, enterprise applications and retail were the top performing sectors, with Delhi leading in total funding. Late-stage investments also surged, while seed and early-stage funding declined. The quarter saw about 6 IPOs and 38 acquisitions. But for more on the highlights from this report, I have with me Neha Singh, the co-founder of Tracxn. Neha, thanks very much for being with us here on CNBC-TV18. Begin by telling us about the key factors that contributed to India securing this kind of funding, surpassing the likes of Germany and others, despite the volatility that we're seeing in global funding.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. So yes, India did see, so India has today become one of the largest ecosystems, I would say, in terms of the startup activity, as well as in terms of, followed by the funding activity that has happened. So if you see Q1, that saw a total of $2.5 billion invested across over 250 rounds and multiple companies. So I think India has become, like, even if you look at the number of unicorn companies or the number of late-stage companies, private companies valued at over $1 billion, India today stacks at the third largest ecosystem that it has become. And similar is the following up in the terms of the funding round as well. So Q1, India saw a rank being third, behind only US and UK.
Neha, this very interesting trend that your report points out, late-stage funding surging, seed-stage funding dropping significantly in the quarter and year on year. Does this indicate any kind of a shift in investor risk appetite towards the more mature startups? And what does it mean for early-stage innovation and the startup pipeline sustainability in India?
Yeah. So the early-stage startup funding declined marginally. That's primarily because of the low volume that we saw, and that is likely to improve. The late-stage activity has saw, sort of uptick. And one of the reasons of that is funding that you saw in IPO-ready companies as well. So if you look at the last calendar year, 2024 was a very buoyant market for the Indian IPO market, right? And you saw a lot of companies which are venture and PE-backed, getting listed. So that provided, a good sort of success, a lot of examples. And that is why you also have a pipeline of companies which are mature enough and are looking to sort of hit the IPO market. So you saw some companies in rounds in some of the late-stage companies, which also contributed to the uptick that you saw in the late-stage funding overall.
Yeah. What was extraordinary was auto tech. The increasing funding sequentially, specifically in that, of course, some deals drove that. But are there specific innovations or market trends that are fueling this particular sector's growth? And do you expect this to continue?
Right. Yeah, so in terms of sectors, auto tech stood out, and primarily because on the back of, I would say electric vehicles. So that saw a few of the deals which have happened, which is also supported by the government, but also in general, you saw this is a large theme that is happening globally. So auto tech was one of the sectors, followed by enterprise applications, and then B2B e-commerce. Interestingly, there are about 1 or 2 sectors that were also saw a lot of investor interest. So one of them being AI. So obviously AI is being talked about, across all. So globally, you saw a lot of funding happening in the AI space in the infrastructure layer. In India, you saw funding happening in the applications layer. So, that was one of the sectors that saw a lot of investor interest. And the second was actually quick commerce. So, given that you've had obviously success of some of the large quick commerce players like a Blinkit or a Zepto or a Swiggy's Instamart, you also saw some of the companies emerge in various verticals, taking over, stab at quick commerce. So these were the two, large sectors that also saw a lot of investor interest.
Typically, even in terms of cities, Bengaluru keeps coming up on top when you talk about startups and funding. But your report says Delhi accounted for the major chunk of funding, nearly double that of Bangalore's. Is this just a short-term shift or part of a larger trend that you're seeing?
So that's an interesting point that you actually make. So if you look at across the last 4 quarters, if you look at like 2024, Bangalore was probably one of the most funded. This year, obviously, it started with Delhi and NCR being at the top of the charts in terms of total dollar raised. If you actually see the total number of deals, again, Bangalore kind of inched up over that ranking. So, but I would say, there's a fairly healthy mix that you also saw. So Delhi obviously has had a lot of good exits, right, in terms of the IPOs. And I think Bangalore is probably just starting on that way. But in terms of deal activity, I think, you'll continue to see a lot of deal activity continue to happen in Bangalore.
Oh, well, speaking of deal activity, Neha, the number of acquisitions also increased by about 41% over the previous year, 38 deals, including some large ones. Does this uptick in acquisition sort of indicate increased market consolidation? Do you expect that to also play out in the rest of the year?
Yeah, so that was an interesting trend that Q1 saw, which is the uptake in terms of the number of acquisition rounds, and also it was not just in terms of the number of acquisition, but it was also in terms of some of the sizable acquisitions that happened. So, for instance, Minimalistic getting acquired by HUL or Wingify getting acquired. So you also saw some large acquisition happening. So I think that is good overall in terms of the startup ecosystem, because last year, for instance, was very buoyant in terms of the IPO as an exit market. And, now with a few successful M&As also happening, I think this actually provides a liquidity back into the investment ecosystem, right? So hopefully this will also, provide some exits to the LPs, and that dollar will get reinvested in the VC ecosystem.
All right, Neha, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us here and sharing all of these insights. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
And with that, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, we dive into ElevenLabs, the AI voice-over company that made waves after doing Prime Minister Modi's voiceover for a podcast with Lex Fridman. The company has also entered the Unicorn Club. Stay tuned for that discussion. Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent interview with Lex Fridman made global headlines, not just for the depth of the conversation, but for what many are calling the best dubbing to date. ElevenLabs was behind the hyper-realistic AI translation. And to talk to us about the future roadmap of the newly turned unicorn, I have Siddharth Srinivasan, the GTM of India ElevenLabs. Siddharth, thank you so much for taking time out and being here with us on Startup Street. You know, this isn't the first leader you've used your AI translation tool for, right? You've also done it for Volodymyr Zelensky in the past as well. If you could sort of talk to us about how these projects came to be and the kind of demand that you're witnessing for your voice dubbing.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. It's lovely to be on your show. You're right. You know, our partnership with Lex Fridman has actually been a few of these content pieces old. You know, we've done Volodymyr Zelensky, we have done Javier Milei, and now we had the privilege to do Mr. Modi for, I think, a really interesting and long-form piece of content. We're a 2-year-old company, and what we pride ourselves on is having really the best voice technology on the planet. We have millions of users all around the world, and I think as a natural consequence of that, over a period of time as the category leader, we found ourselves able to be on these kind of transformative and impactful projects. And so, you know, hopefully the audience, our mission is to really make sure that the content is available in every language and every voice. And so hopefully by participating in projects like these, we're able to take that piece of content and bring it to the audience in a more authentic experience, preserving the original voice.
Absolutely. And, you know, in just 2 years, you've become a unicorn, raising your last round of $180 million just a month back, right? If you could take us through how you've used these funds since you've raised them and, you know, what's new ahead for you? What's exciting for you going forward?
So, you know, in this category, you sort of hang your hat on the quality of your research, and that's what we primarily are. We are a research company. We're an AI audio lab, and we have some fantastic researchers, right from our founder, Piotr, who's on Time 100's top AI, personalities. And, you know, we start with that, and I think a lot of the funds that we have will really go into co-research and infra. On top of that, you know, we are building enterprise-ready products today. So if you look at our workflows being used by, you know, Fortune 500 companies, we are investing a lot to sort of make sure that our technology is productized and reaches the hands of the users well. And the third part is really go-to-market. You know, I think maybe about 18 months back, we had 5 employees. Now we've got 150 employees. We are almost 10 people in India, in fact. And so a lot of these go into localization and investments, which make sure that our technology finds its hands in terms of the users for all of the fantastic use cases that we think we can power.
Absolutely. And, you know, before I delve deeper into the India market, right, if you could sort of just tell us how big is this AI voice market? If you could sort of, you know, take us through all the other offerings that you have as well. And how do you keep innovating to stay ahead of the big guys like Google, OpenAI, you know, and the likes of them? And how many languages are you available in?
Sounds good. That's many questions in one. Let me take them. So first of all, you know, I think what's really interesting is India has actually become our highest user market globally. From around November to around January, we actually saw 50% growth in usage. And, you know, that trend sort of continues, right? So it's a really voracious market when you sort of think of language solutions. And that's no surprise. We are a multicultural, multilingual, multi-dialect market. And so when you look at the technology that, you know, our founders sort of built out and our research team is building, which is essentially multi-language and multicultural at the heart of it, I think we had great product market fit right from the beginning. Today, when you look at the Indian story, you know, you sort of see us in really big media context. So, for example, you know, we're partnered, you know, with the fantastic folks at Star Cricket, where they're taking international cricketers and unlocking experiences in native Indian languages, making it really accessible. So that's an example. We work, for example, with partners like Cube Cinema, who actually drive accessibility and audio narration through the use of our technology on mainline film releases. So that's on one side. And on the other side, we're powering extremely large volumes of customer support across languages. So I think, you know, this is really a technology that was always had a market ready for it. And now the state of technology and product is able to sort of reach the final consumer. You know, if you sort of look at NASSCOM reports, you know, the estimates that this is maybe a $1.82 billion market by 2030. And I think, you know, it has the opportunity to be extremely large, and we're surely seeing that in our user base today. And so, yeah, I think what we are looking to do as we round up this year is to continue to innovate on really world-class research. You know, apart from having what we think are the best voice models in the world, the most expressive, the fastest voice models for real-time conversation, one of the simplest AI agent building platforms. We also just recently launched Scribe, which is actually available in 11 Indian languages. And in all of them, we think it has the highest accuracy compared to any other model that sort of takes your speech and maps it to text in the world, right? So that's something we launched. We've got sound effects models, and down this year, we're going to be innovating more on the model side. So I think you will see that happen. The second thing you will see on top of this world-class research is just great product, which allows for various dialects, languages in the India use case to reach the final consumer.
Right. And in 10 seconds, if you could tell us, what's the revenue target for this year and what about profitability?
These are things that we're not disclosing, but what we can say is we've got a great business model, we're well capitalized, and we're investing deep in India.
All right, Siddharth, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best on your journey going forward.
Thank you for your time.
And with that, it is a wrap on this.
Curtains down on this edition of Startup Street. Well, more news and updates will continue on the other side. It's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you.